today we are talking about boundaries. So first we'll just have everybody quickly introduce themselves. I've got two lovely sisters with me, and I have a lovely brother as well. To my knowledge, most of us here are single. So you hear something you like. Sorry, but yes. Everybody introduce yourselves. We'll start from my brother. We'll go to my sisters.
Hello, my name is Joseph, and I'm a part of the Limitless technical department, and more recently the events team.
Hi, I'm Lydia, and I'm part of the HR team and the choir and a few others.
Hi, I'm Felicia. I'm a part of the leader of the Welcome and Welfare team, a part of prayer as well.
As I failed to mention, I'm the head of the prayer team. I'm also in the choir and on the committee. So, boundaries. What are we thinking? Any first thoughts?
Boundaries.
Yes, what are boundaries to us? Can somebody just give me a brief summary, like a definition? What are boundaries?
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of view it like not in a strict sense, but kind of like a line in the sand. You know the way like when someone draws a line in the sand, it's something you either don't cross or don't want to be crossed. So that's kind of how I loosely view boundaries as, just that line that you're like, all right, I don't want to go past this, or I also don't want anyone to come past this in my direction.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I completely agree. Setting your self rules. I also kind of see boundaries as a part of standards and kind of setting your standards for yourself, setting your standards for the person that you want to enter your life.
Yeah, definitely agree with Lydia and Joshua. I think that boundaries are like the walls of Jericho. I'm joking. No, but truly, I think it's what says a lot about you, what you yourself you accept as a person, what's okay and what's not okay, and that meeting line as well of understanding with another person is how well you perceive or you kind of take into consideration their boundaries as a person.
That's lovely. So, a question that just came to my mind as Joseph so profoundly said is like that line in the sand. So, as stated, we're Christians here, we have the word of God as our standard, and we have these things. So it's like, how detailed do our boundaries need to be? Like we say, no sex before marriage. As a Christian, we all know this, that's a boundary. Is it just these things that the Bible say, or how detailed do we need to be with our boundaries? Yeah, Lydia?
The way that I see my personal boundaries in my life are things that complement the scripture and things that complement the law. So now the example that you've given is like no sex before marriage. How can I create boundaries that would stop me leading myself into temptation? So the boundaries that I would maybe say, for example, like maybe not meeting at the person's house or not meeting in each other's places, but then if you would do that type of thing, not staying past a certain time. So avoiding being in circumstances that would lead to that type of temptation. So I feel like boundaries complement the scripture that's already been written for us.
Absolutely.
I really resonate with that because I feel as though it's a mistake I used to make earlier on where I would set my boundaries as the kind of final extreme instead of adding things along the way. So I would kind of unintentionally wait until you're at that final point where okay, this is one of the boundaries, and then now start rectifying it, as opposed to doing what she said where kind of add some soft boundaries along the way to kind of guide you.
Absolutely.
It's like prevention rather than trying to just gather together bits of what's left, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
So we're all agreeing on the fact that with boundaries, the aim is not, we have that line that we know we can't cross, but we're trying to stay as far away from that line as possible, because we have the law, we have the Bible that has the black and white, don't do this, don't do that. But in the world we live in today, there's also wisdom that we need to apply so that we can stay in line with what the word says. So another question, as singles, what are the boundaries that we should be having? And do these boundaries, do they change? Do they progress? So I'm single now. I have this set of boundaries. Now I've spoken to a person, we've agreed, maybe we like each other, we're going to see if we take things a step further. How was the progression like? So first and foremost, boundaries as a single person, what are our thoughts? Are there any examples? Maybe anybody has that they'd like to share?
Are we single? I'm married to the Holy Spirit.
One with Christ.
Yeah. So I see it as not just having boundaries, but I see it as having the right kind of boundaries, healthy boundaries. Because I think if we're not careful, boundaries can be a bit too rigid, should I say, or too where you don't even understand why you set the boundaries in the first place as well. So I think as singles, we need to have healthy boundaries in that it doesn't mean that we are completely shutting ourselves off to the world or to anybody of the opposite sex, or even to the person who's trying to get to know you, or assuming like maybe their intentions as well. But actually you letting them know and being very clear in your communication what you yourself personally stand for and why, the reason why. You don't even always have to explain why, but I think just out of courtesy for other people, it's good to let them know why you are thinking what you are thinking, where it's coming from, not just kind of like, this is what we're not going to do, end of story. You know, it's just kind of like me going, yeah, I'm going to go to the gym this year, let's do it. But I myself don't even understand why I want to go to the gym. Is it for me to feel good? Is it for me to strengthen myself? Or is it just because it's a common goal that everybody else has? So I think healthy boundaries, so understanding for yourself what it is that you want, what is it that you desire in your personal relationship with God, or even in a relationship as well. In terms of your personality, are you somebody who loves to talk a lot, or are you actually someone who you like your peace and you like your quiet? You know, you need them to understand it as well without coming across as insensitive and being overly blunt. So yeah, I think healthy boundaries, and that will differ for each person. But of course, in terms of your spiritual standards, that may like kind of cross over with other people as well, in, let's say, Limitless. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I think Lydia? For myself, because you did say about boundaries between like during the progressional stage. So I feel like as a single, the boundaries that I set in place for myself are how I protect my heart, because you know the Bible tells us to guard our heart. So as a single, the boundaries I put in place for myself are essentially how I guard my heart and how I avoid, you know, falling for every guy type of thing. So what are the rules and how do I keep that level of friendship to get to know guys on just like a platonic level, and how can they get to know me type of thing while still remaining guarded. Then I think when I progress into the dating stage, it's now a thing of, okay, I do have my boundaries for myself, but like, what are my boundaries regarding this other person? How can you interact with me? And now it's a thing of like, what is the standard that I would want you to uphold as somebody who is now entering my life in that way? So then I now would know his boundaries too. So what do I have to uphold in order to enter his life type of thing?
Absolutely.
Likewise, now you're dating, you into marriage, the boundaries are way looser, but there's still boundaries needed, you know, like some people, you know, like their personal time. I mean, I've not been married, I don't know, but like I would assume they would still differ, because like, you know, you can't now say, don't be calling me past this time, because I know for myself, if I'm dating somebody, don't be calling me past a certain time, like but if you're now my husband, like if you call me at 1 a.m. I can't just ignore you, because who knows what's happening.
We're in the same bed most likely, so just tap on the shoulder.
I mean, do you know what I mean? But I mean, don't wake me up though, but still.
Yeah, are there any more thoughts on that?
Just based on boundaries changing, I do believe boundaries change over time for a variety of different reasons. It could be a new mindset, it could be, you know, maturing, developing, and as well, sometimes you could find that certain boundaries could soften over time. That's on the flip side of things. If maybe they're not, I don't say looked after as much, you could find that, okay, I was pretty strict in this particular area in time, but maybe as the years go by, relationships change, you know, just different things happen here and then. You could find that some boundaries have softened, some of them have strengthened. But personally, for me, with boundaries, it's been an interesting journey, because
tell us more.
Yes,
I feel like I started off really kind of strong on boundaries, and then at some point I got really super relaxed, and then I'm kind of back on the strong side of boundaries, just because at the moment I feel like I'm going through a really intense mindset change, in that even based on like kind of calling back to one of the events we had back, the Our Love Journey event, where one of the couples was speaking. One of the couples was speaking about how their approach to the relationship was a relationship to honor God, and it wasn't just about what can we do to honor God. It was like the whole mindset that created that that kind of atmosphere of how can we honor God with our relationship. And just thinking about that made me realize that to get to that step where your relationship is honoring God in every aspect, it has to kind of come from a mindset of I want to do this. And that just kind of that really resonated with me in the sense that I do feel that's a great step to take in terms of boundaries of what's the kind of eventual goal, what are you trying to achieve in the long run.
Absolutely.
That's true. I love the what are you trying to achieve part of it, because I do think sometimes if we're not careful, we can set boundaries out of pride, thinking that, okay, we're now going through our own process of self-development and growth, and other people are not catching up. Do you understand? But I believe that boundaries should also be set out of love. And what you're trying to do, for example, let's look at what a lack of boundaries might cause. You're in church, and let's say somebody else or 3 other people have been given a responsibility, but consistently they fail to meet up with those responsibilities, and you're the one who will always be the one picking up the pieces at the very end. Do you understand? Now you're doing it because you think, oh, we're told to be caring and to be loving and to create an atmosphere of support for one another, but you know that lack of consistent meeting up with the responsibilities was not due to, let's say, some exceptional circumstance, but that's because of the way that maybe they're managing their time and the choices that they are making, and because they know that someone else is going to pick up the pieces. So you actually setting your own boundaries and having standards, the standards and boundaries are connected and related. What you're actually doing is showing love, because you're no longer absolving them of the responsibilities that are going to help them to grow, that are going to help them to actually further themselves. So those boundaries should not be out of spite, should be, I think, out of love, because you understand that I do want to do this for you, I can do this for you, but it's also impacting other areas of my life. And I also want you to be able to grow. I don't want to stop you from growing because I keep picking up pieces that were supposed to be for you, lessons that you are supposed to learn in that journey. So I definitely think also, as you said, the mindset and the attitude as to why you are setting your boundaries, why you are, drawing the line is really, really important as well. That's what makes it a healthy one.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I was even going to try and steer the conversation this way, but it's lovely that we're here already. Like the benefits and the whys behind boundaries. One thing that really resonates with me is that we're children of the kingdom, and kingdom relationships are different. They're just very different. And the one thing about kingdom relationships is that clarity on both sides. That's the standard in a kingdom relationship. And I think having boundaries can really, really help that. That actually provides clarity, because it's like, personally, it's like if I have this boundary and you're within that boundary, that tells me we're friends. If like me personally, there's a certain time of the day that you should not be able to contact me after, unless it's exceptional circumstances, and not even necessarily prayer time. That's just how I now I can now have that clarity of, okay, this is what this relationship is. If you talk in the morning and it's like, and there's a problem of, oh, why was this? Why did you not message me back? I can now explain to you that this is my personal boundary. This kind of avoids things like leading on or misconceived ideas.
Exactly.
You're thinking you're somewhere else and you're actually here, and it's like it just provides that clarity, and it's like it guards your heart, and it helps other people as well, because it may not be bad for you, but you may mistakenly be leading other people on, and they're like, it doesn't necessarily have to be the boundary I said, but like if you're just loose and with everybody, it could just be like, actually, I thought we were here. And then you're like, actually, sorry, I don't see you that way. But this is a benefit of boundaries. So are there any other reasons why we think we can have boundaries? Any other benefits that we can personally say that how boundaries have benefited us?
Personally.
Yeah.
Personally.
Personally. Now we have to think.
I don't know about that, but
But just to quickly touch on what you're saying, I do agree with what you bring up about clarity. Even also going back to what Felicia was saying of trying as much as possible to provide a reason for your boundaries. I mean, you don't have to, if that makes sense. Like no one's gonna force you to provide it, but that clear communication helps people understand more what's going on. In this case, we're talking about a potential partner. So because in some scenarios you might set a boundary, and if you don't communicate that clearly, it might just be perceived as rejection, or it could just be perceived differently, whereas it's just an innocent case of, okay, this is a boundary that I have of something that maybe I don't want to do, or something that a line I don't want to cross, and just miscommunicated could really cause them.
Yeah, and I feel like setting boundaries for me tells me two things. It's like firstly that they can be disciplined. Like, I've set these things and you can actually and it's respect. That was the second thing I was going to say, that they actually respect you as well, because it's like, if I give you this is my boundaries, and it's like they said, okay, yeah, I'm going to follow this. First of all, they're disciplining themselves, because maybe they're not used to that with everybody, but that's what they are trying to learn, because they want to pursue you. And then they also respect you, because it's like, okay, you've told me this and I'm going to stick by it. If you don't want me to message you past this time, I'll save it for the morning, or I'll message you and wait for you to reply, type of thing. And I think as well, the benefit of setting boundaries also very clearly, I mean, speaking as a female, it very clearly says to like a guy, if you want to now be with me, these are, I don't know how to explain it.
You have to commit.
Exactly.
You have to make your intentions known.
You have to make your intentions very clear.
Boundaries.
Exactly.
Otherwise, stay within your lane.
Exactly. It's like, prove yourself to me quicker before you can have looser boundaries, type of thing. Like, if you actually make your intentions to me clearer and show me why, like, we are meant to be, or that type of thing, then it's like, guys will actually act on that quick. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly.
No, definitely. And I think, there's always this problem of like prolonged dating, prolonged relationships, and that's something that can actually shorten that in a sense, because now you have this boundary and the guy actually wants to pursue you. He actually has to think, am I going to marry this girl? Am I going to this? Because like, if you don't come correct, these boundaries are in place. Sorry, you're not getting any more than this is my package. Maybe if there's commitment, then we can discuss. Wow. There's a bit of a discussion. But as I'm a single, this is me.
Yeah. And I think that also, like, providing boundaries gives you that distance to properly have clarity and to think, because I think if someone is actually too close into your life and too close into your thoughts, then you will end up being driven by feelings, and you'll be thinking like, oh yeah, I really like this person, so blah, blah, blah. But I think if you actually keep them at that like arm's length, you can actually properly assess the situation to be like, okay, now you can be like this closer. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That is I think that makes so much sense. And I think you're speaking about personal experiences, not to go into any detail, but definitely allows you to assess as well your role in certain situations as well, because it's not always about the other person. It's not about the people you're setting the boundaries for necessarily. It's also about you. And it helps you yourself to understand, like, okay, has this boundary actually been useful to set, or is it just an excuse, or is it just do you understand? Like, something up front I'm putting up because I don't want to deal with like the real crux of the issues. What was that? You said come correct. This your come correct. That's it. Boundaries help the people around you to come correct to you. You set the standard for how they treat you as well. And boundaries are a big part of that. If you are someone who accepts everything and anything, especially let's say if you're very open and very welcoming, it's easy for people to say that for granted. But that's okay as long as you know that you understand where your boundaries lie. Exactly. In terms of that. And when people don't come correct, you can be like, let me just check you for a second. Just hold on there. But even in relationships and friendships, I think when you are clear with your own boundaries, it forces people to, and in terms of coming correct, it forces them to level up around you in terms of how they approach you. And that's what boundaries do. But if you don't have boundaries, it means that anything goes for you. And I don't think that's necessarily okay.
It's a dangerous place to be.
It's a dangerous place to be,
But no. So what are measures that we can take to make sure that we are keeping to our boundaries, Like, sometimes boundaries are difficult. We're in the month of discipline, and there are things that, it's like Romans 7 when Paul says, the things that I should do, I don't do them. But those things that I know that I shouldn't do, that's the thing I find myself doing. And that can very much happen in boundaries. Like, we have these boundaries that we know we've set. We have these boundaries that we know we should be sticking to. But maybe one day we slip here, the next day we slip there. And then all of a sudden we're like, how did we get here? Or, those ones that maybe, like Felicia said, those ones that aren't necessarily necessary and that we're sticking to those ones. So what can we do to make sure that we are keeping ourselves in these boundaries? Are there measures we can take? Yes, Lydia.
Sorry, I feel like I'm always on first. But very simply accountability is the number one thing. for me, I don't think a boundary is actually a boundary if nobody knows about it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, who's now, like, you're just kind of, you're just living your life really in some weird structured way. But I think that if you actually have boundaries, you actually voice your boundaries to accountability, obviously not somebody that you're trying to pursue, like, oh, are these boundaries okay? Because, like, that's not your place. But, like, if you have, like, your people you're accountable to, and you're just like, okay, these are my boundaries. Are they too loose? Is this reasonable? Like, are they too strict? That type of thing, too rigid? Also to know how your boundaries are, but also to make sure you keep them. Because now once you've told somebody, like for instance, Raymond's my brother, so he says his boundary is like messaging within certain times. I know his times, so now if I see
I don't
so now if I see him like on his phone at a certain time messaging, sometimes he'll even be like to me, somebody just sent this message, can I reply? And I'll actually be like, I'm like, you know what I mean? Like I feel like once you have that form of accountability, you actually will check yourself, because not everybody actually, I mean, I don't want to say that, I don't think anybody really has the self-control or the discipline to like check themselves. We need the accountability.
Absolutely. And then I think something that I would even add to just throw on top of that is that, of course, I have certain times, but there are exceptions to the rule. And it's like, now when those exceptions come up, I can quickly go and explain, this has happened, I'm going to message at this point and this and that. It just provides a lot of safety. And if you actually do slip and fall to a boundary, you can you have these people to quickly go back. And it's like, it's important to pick the right people.
Exactly.
People who are praying with you, people who want to see the best for you. We know in the Bible of some bad counsel, David's son Amnon and his friends is like, just do this, do that. We know, I'm sure we know the story. For those of us who may not know, David's son Amnon, he was liking a girl. His friend was like, just have her come to your room, and the girl was his sister. Actually, this isn't just any girl. It was his sister. It was not right for them to be together. And he said, just have her come to your room and cook for you. That was the only advice he gave. The rest is history. So it's very important who you keep as accountability.
Exactly.
It's very important.
Exactly.
I also think it's quite helpful to pick yourself up in terms that sometimes you might have certain boundaries and you might maybe push them or break them. So just to realize that it's not a one and done, in the sense that, this boundary is broken and you just kind of let yourself fall. Like, even if you break the boundary, let's just use the example of texting, for example. Let's say speak to someone, or any boundary, because boundaries are different. So sometimes you might push them a bit, and I think it's important to pick yourself back up and just realize that, all right, I maybe didn't quite make it that time, but I can still go again. Yeah.
And I think also it's really important to set the boundaries early on, as soon as you are aware that it's something that you find really important. And just as an example, like, I met up with someone recently, a friend, and he was talking about how before he came to meet me as well, he kind of asked, like, the Holy Spirit, is it okay, should I go and meet this person? And I was like, I was actually thinking the same thing, because we spoke about in the last one, cohabitation and things like that. But I think even being in the same place, in a private space, even cinema, like, you really have to be careful sometimes. So it's just like, sometimes really taking a moment for you to just actually ask, is God, like, is it okay for me to even be in this space? And when you are in that space, understanding exactly, being able to lay out exactly why you're together with people sometimes. Oh, hey, I just thought it would be good for us to meet up, or because we wanted to speak about or discuss this particular thing, like, just be really, really clear so that people don't misunderstand. Even if, let's say, someone is in a relationship as well, being quite clear about that so that people don't feel like, I just think really early, and as somebody who's like teaching, that's one of the first things we learn. You set expectations at the start. When they come in the morning, when they sit on the carpet, you set the expectations for sitting on the carpet. When you're about to line up to go for lunch, you set the expectations for how we line up to go for lunch. Every step, it's like a reminder. Do you understand? Just because you have one boundary for one thing does not mean that people understand that it covers other areas as well. So I think being very clear with the different areas in which you have boundaries, there's not like one general, like, blanket, like Jeremiah said once, the word, setting a wide general blanket over everything. I don't think that's how boundaries necessarily work. Yes, you are somebody who goes to church and loves God, but that's not saying anything. That doesn't tell me much, There are many people who say that, but the boundaries are very different that they have set for themselves. So we have to be very clear as early as we can with other people as well.
So we're coming up to the last 5 minutes or so of this podcast. And, we've said that, setting boundaries is a very individual type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what can we do for our viewers who, like, they're like, I don't have any boundaries. I don't know how to start picking boundaries. I don't know, they've said it's a very individualistic thing. Are there like things we can get them thinking about that could give them a good guideline to setting boundaries? We want people to be able to take something away. And if the only thing they take away is that it's individual, then it could be like, I'm on my own. Okay. But if we give them something to think about. So in the last 5 minutes, I'd like to throw something in this.
Come on.
I think one thing is love language.
Yeah.
I think somebody could consider what are my love languages, and I think that's a good place to actually set boundaries. Yeah. For example, like quality time. Yeah. If my love language is quality time, I should have a boundary of, okay, how much time can I spend with my friends?
Yeah.
If my thing is gifts, who am I receiving and accepting? Who am I giving gifts to?
Yeah.
Who am I accepting gifts from?
Yeah.
It's like if I'm a friend, no, like I'm not trying to accept this type of gift. I'm not trying to.
Yeah.
So that's just something that for those to think about. You have the love languages. Can somebody name the love languages for us? For those who may not know.
Quality time, words of affirmation,
service, gifts,
physical touch.
Physical touch. Lovely.
We love them all, actually.
So whatever one of those resonate with you, that'll be a good place to consider setting a boundary. So anybody else, any other things that we can consider?
Well, from a personal standpoint, the way that I set my boundaries is I look at my past flaws and I think of, okay, how can I overcome them? So for one example, I personally used to struggle with codependency. So I am like, now, how can I stop myself from falling into that codependency? Don't make the person the number one priority in my life. If you're phoning me, you're do you know what I mean? If I've got a bunch of people phoning, your call should not be the first one I'm answering.
Yeah.
Also, it's just about, how do I spend my time? How much time am I investing on you? And how much time is too much that would make me now codependent? So that's like a boundary. That's how I set my boundaries. Think about past flaws, things that have, maybe made relationships and friendships or like romantic relationships fail.
Your journey.
And then how do I not want to go into that again?
Reflection.
Yeah.
I think for me, goals as well really, really help. Just touching back on what we spoke on earlier, if I know what I'm trying to achieve, it makes it a little bit easier to kind of define, all right, what do I need to do to get there, and what boundaries do I need to have to get there? Exactly. Kind of purposeful, makes it a bit easier. If I say, for example, I want a relationship that honors God, I can kind of identify a few things along the way that I can say, all right, if I begin doing these things, I feel like my relationship might begin to stray. And sometimes it doesn't have to be all the way at the extreme of, impurity and stuff like that. It could be something as simple as, for example, I want someone with a heart after God, something like that. Because, we all come to church and all that, but what do you do when you're away from church and stuff like that? You could just live your life, go on and come to church Sunday, Wednesday, go back. So I find that helps me quite a lot to determine what kind of boundaries I would like to set.
Absolutely. Felicia, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, always plenty thoughts. But
lovely.
I just was reminded again, as you said, we're in the month of discipline, and I strongly believe that boundaries and self-discipline go hand in hand. You can't set boundaries without desiring to be disciplined yourself in whatever it is that you're setting boundaries in. And in terms of goals as well, if you don't know what you're aiming for, you're just aiming aimlessly. You're not going to shoot anything. But if you know exactly what you're striving for, it's much easier to target your focus and your energy as well. So then you know how far you're willing to go with different things in different areas of your life, how much time you're willing to expand into different things in different areas of your life. But on the discipline aspect, as I was mentioning, so let's look at Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, when they were like chosen and things, and they were invited to the feast. And they were like, no, can we please just have vegetables?
Yeah.
We don't need me over here. The Bible says that they purposed their hearts. That was the first thing that they did before it even said all these other things they're doing. They purposed their hearts. So I definitely think in terms of you knowing what it is that you're going for first, understanding what the vision is that you're striving towards is very important. And then when they were given that opportunity to eat the vegetables, they were very disciplined and kept to it as well. I'm sure they weren't just eating, let's say, I'll just eat one carrot a day. They had a point to prove. You get? So because it was evident that they really cared about their boundaries, it meant that their boundary was respected as well.
Absolutely.
So.
We're going to have a final word from Lydia.
Yeah.
And then we're going to swiftly wrap this up. But we just pray that you guys have taken things away. Yes, Lydia.
My very little final bit is
No pressure.
is also not to be hypocritical hypocritical with your boundaries. If you can't achieve them yourself, don't expect somebody else to be able to do it. So the standard in which you should expect from somebody else, you should be able to maintain yourself too.
That's it.
Absolutely. What a wonderful word to end it on. Guys, we hope you've had a lovely time. We hope you've taken a lot away, and we hope that this will help you go on to have healthy singleness, healthy relationships, and healthy marriages. God bless you. This has been the Limitless podcast. We love you all. Bye.
Bye.